All right, welcome back. We have things to talk about today. I have just seen some cursory glances about what's been going on with VPNs, and there are also some things going on with TradeOgre, which is tragic, and there are also some things going on with court cases involving privacy and crypto. Now, we have talked about the Roman Sterlingoff case involving Bitcoin fog. How do you find the fog? Well, they found him, and they set a precedent for using Chainalysis in tracking cryptocurrency and having that be admissible evidence in a court of law, which wasn't great, but that was the start of what was to come. And recently, what happened was you had guilty pleas for the Samurai wallet cases. Now, I'm not going to go into what exactly that means, but it's not good for privacy because it indicates that somebody can be guilty for creating software that somebody else uses in an illegal way. So, gun manufacturers, like we ran into this in the United States a while back, where some gun manufacturers were held responsible for, school shootings or whatever, acts that were committed by other people with their guns. And obviously, that's ridiculous. But that is something that happened. And that seems to be something which is now happening for privacy technology in the legal arena. And that's in the United States, but that's going to be coming to Europe probably in no time. Europe's the master at doing stuff like that. And then lately, we also had crackdowns on internet anonymity and freedom. And that's something I want to talk about here. I have some things pulled up on my phone. I don't have tabs on my phone, but, and then of course, TradeOgre is down. Probably the worst news of all. And of course, we love TradeOgre. We've talked very positively about TradeOgre for a very long time here. And it's honestly shocking. They've been around for, I don't even know how long, but like longer than I have even known about private cryptos. They have been there at the spear providing private crypto liquidity. And now they're gone, it seems. Now, there hasn't been like movement of crypto from the wallets. Some people are saying it's just a Cloudflare problem, like Cloudflare is down, which is what they use, and so the website is down. And honestly, I have a lot of faith in TradeOgre. I think they're going to come back, but maybe they don't, and there's an exit scam that happens and it's over. There was kind of like a funny conversation that one person had with TradeOgre Assist, like the support people. They're like, "Why are you guys down?" And they responded, "Hey, thanks for reaching out." And the person's like, "Okay, yeah, do you have anything more to add?" And so hopefully they come back. I have faith in TradeOgre. But if they do go down, it's a bad day because we love TradeOgre, and now people are going to have to rely more on maybe better solutions, decentralized exchanges and such. Maybe that'll incentivize people more so to use Haveno app, and that'll encourage more people to use stuff like Sarai Dex, which is coming. But let's talk a little bit about this age verification thing, and because this is really kind of crazy. This is really wild. Because now they're starting to talk about banning VPNs, which is like really, really bad stuff. So a couple of days ago, we started to see countries that are usual suspects for digital tyranny. Europe, the United Kingdom, and Australia. They were talking about making it so that you had to have age verification or to get onto the internet at all. And this was then spread to the United States with Spotify and YouTube. And it's really kind of shocking. Let me pull up some things because obviously we're very anti KYC here. We were anti KYC before pretty much literally everybody else in the world, now realizing the danger of KYC and not wanting to go along with this. But this is from disclose.tv. They said YouTube will begin using AI to monitor user behavior and psychology. You see how freaking crazy that is? They're going to use AI to monitor your psychology, right? How freaking wild is that? Is every internet service provider going to be judging me based on my internet activity, like, and doing psychological evaluations? Like, that's pretty wild. But they are going to be using that to determine whether viewers in the US are over or under the age of 18. How do you do that with AI? How does, you know what I mean? Like, when I was 15 or 16, I was getting into like Alex Jones and David Icke and like old school conspiracy stuff. And would that have been determined activity that would be correlated with somebody who is under the age of 18? Because I was. And I was, of course, getting into a lot of other things on YouTube that, you know, tickled the curiosity. You know, you get into stuff about philosophy, you get into stuff about, okay, what's really going on with, for instance, the Afghanistan war. And you have to wonder, okay, are they going to make it so anything that is sensitive, right? And you have to understand this too. This is another angle. A lot of the anti-Israel activity online is coming from the younger generation. It's not the boomers. It's definitely not the older folks. It's the younger folks. Like, there is a huge anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian sentiment on TikTok. And now I'm not on TikTok. I'm frankly, I think, too old for TikTok. Never thought I'd say something like that, but I think I am. I'm not interested in TikTok, but it's a younger crowd. And if you look at the stats, it's the younger folks who are very much speaking out against what's happening in Gaza, for instance, and the awful things that are happening there. And I suspect that this whole age verification thing has something to do with that. And not only that, but they want to prevent anonymous content creators from spreading their opinions about this kind of thing, because anonymity is important for free speech. I know there's this whole debate about, well, we should really be courageous, go out there and tell people who we are and what we think. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. But some people are not in a rational position to do that. And if they do that, people could hunt down their employers, say, hey, to the employers, we don't like what this person is saying, and then they get fired from their job. And there's a case of that recently with this guy who went on this debate forum. He expressed his opinions about being right-wing, and he got fired from his job. And he worked at like a Catholic thing, which is typically a more right-wing organization type of thing, but he got fired anyway. Could you imagine if you work at Google or you worked at a big corporation? They could report your activity back to those people, and then they could fire you. They could enact economic warfare against you. And then you don't have the capacity to speak, because maybe you can't even afford internet at that point. And so anonymity is pretty important for people being able to express their opinions. But now in the age of AI, what they can do is they can chalk that up to, well, you see, there's a lot of bots out there, and they're using artificial intelligence, and they're using spamming techniques in order to express a certain opinion and magnify it to make it look bigger than it actually is. That's what they're going to be saying. And so what they could say is, well, to prevent this, we need to verify identity. If you want to get on and express yourself in the public square, we need to have your identity verified. And they're more or less going to encourage the people who have unpopular ideas, or at least would be popular ideas for demographics of people under the age of 18, that's how they're going to frame it, to provide their ID. And of course, that's going to feed into the Palantir surveillance system, and then that's going to play into the social network, social credit system that's being built at the moment. Surely the whole stablecoin thing has something to do with this. We've talked about stablecoins a lot. There's a capacity for them to freeze your funds whenever they want to do that. There's a possibility for them to prevent you from spending your money at certain places. that they don't like. And it's basically a CBDC when we're talking about these stable coins, and we're looking at their capacities that they have and the fact that they're buying treasuries in order to back their stable coins. I mean, it might as well be a CBDC. And so we're seeing the rollout of that in the United States and CBDCs outright in places like Europe. Now we're starting to see this age verification thing so that people can be identified on the internet. There's something in the US news recently about digital identity being linked up with your health records, linked up with artificial intelligence. And as we've talked about here on the channel for years now, the end goal on the financial front is to link tax, AI, and blockchain. That's the unholy trifecta of what it is they would like to accomplish. And so if they get all of this data together about who you are, about what you do, your financial activity, the things you say, and they can get you onto a financial control grid where they can stop your flow of money, they can stop you from earning money, they can wage economic warfare on you because of the things that you say, because the corporations increasingly have control over the economic means of production, if you want to put it that way, because they're able to use the state in order to crowd out small business. And we saw that a lot during COVID, right? Basically, the only businesses that were, what did they say, necessary were the big businesses. Every other business had to close, and they were typically small businesses. So we saw a huge consolidation of economic power amongst the corporations, who, of course, have an agenda that aligns with certain interests. And those are interests that would not like to see the younger generation express their freedom of speech, particularly because the younger generation's getting ever more pissed off at the economic situations that are out there. And it's not just the economic situations. You have a lot of sociological stuff going on too, especially with young men who can't find dates and can't find a job, and they can't buy a house, and there's a lot of this stuff kind of taking place. And he had this bubble of revolutionary energy, which, as I've argued for a long time, is going to find its way to Monero. But let's go through a couple of these other tweets that I saw. Some of them are from Keith, and Keith was somebody who was spearheading Monero acceptance by Brave. So we do like Keith on X. Let me see if I can pull up his tweets, because they were pretty eye-opening. Okay. So this is what Keith said today. He said, my ISP has decided to block access to VPN sites. Now, where did this whole VPN thing come from? Well, to get around the whole age verification thing and to get around the regulations that were passed in the UK regarding internet regulation and constrictions on anonymity, people using VPNs, right? And so the UK government said, maybe we need to ban VPNs. And so that was a side thought, right? It's like, oh, they're talking about banning VPNs now. That's crazy. And now it seems to be happening because, listen, Keith says, my ISP has decided to block access to VPN sites. This is so incredibly stupid. I wonder what they'll do if they figure out I work for a VPN company. Will they just cut off my internet? I'm not telling you guys what ISP I'm using for safety reasons. I'm not from the UK. This is such a stupid thing. Yes, it's easy to bypass this. That's not the point. My point is my ISP, your ISP, shouldn't be blocking you from accessing VPN sites. FYI, I posted this because it used to be able to go to those. I used to be able to go to those sites without any issues. Now it causes issues, and that is what is bad. It shouldn't be happening. It's the only case with VPN-specific sites. And this is what he said, which really kind of opened my eyes. He said, I can access everything Proton has to offer, except the VPN. So there is a targeted attack on the VPNs, and it seems that they're going through the ISP vectors, right? So bypassing this is easy. You can do that. And he comes up with some solutions. Tor is also blocked by the ISPs. And, he's talking about using Mullvad DNS. Obviously, the lesson here is to go get a VPN, right? Go get it now while you can. Particularly, go get Mullvad VPN, pay for cash, so at least they don't think you have a VPN. Although I have heard that they're able to figure out which IPs correlate to which VPNs based on activity. And with artificial intelligence, they'll be able to figure that out more so. But if you think about it, if they don't like VPNs this much, imagine how much they hate Monero. Oh my gosh, imagine how much they just absolutely loathe Monero. People have said for years, well, Western governments are going to try to ban Monero. Maybe they do. I always thought that was maybe overstating it, but maybe they actually do. Because if they can get away with banning VPNs, which maybe is next on the list, I don't think they're going to ban them, though, because professionals do need to use VPNs, especially if they're traveling. Because if they're, trying to log into things and they're in public places and whatever, you don't want to be just doing work with sensitive data on a public network. You can't do that. You have to use a VPN. Ideally use a VPS, but that's a whole thing. But I think what's going to happen is if you want to use a VPN service, you're going to have to basically go through KYC. Like you're going to have to identify yourself to the VPN company, and then that VPN company will then pass off your internet data to the government, or at least make it available. And what's the solution to that? You just have to use a VPN service that is in a nation that protects privacy of its users, doesn't keep logs and that kind of thing. However, we look at Proton. It recently came out that they're going to move their headquarters to the EU. They're moving it out of Switzerland because I guess Switzerland is passing anti-privacy laws. So, pretty crazy. I just saw some tweets about TradeOgre. People are saying that they are now pulling off an exit scam. I hope that's not the case, man. We don't know what's going on with TradeOgre. I hope they don't exit scam everybody, but we don't know what the deal is. We don't know what's going on. I think it's unfortunate that all this is happening. The court cases, the Tornado Cash and Samurai cases, Bitcoin Fog case, the attack on VPNs and online freedom and privacy, and then this whole TradeOgre thing. I mean, we're taking some hits, boys. We're taking some hits. So, what's the solution? Go figure out some solutions. Use Monero. I've heard some good things about Tails, Linux, all these other things. I mean, we're going to have to start to wise up really fast if we want to protect our online privacy. We're going to have to really kind of figure out the whole OPSEC thing pretty quick. It's going to become increasingly important. So that's all I've got to say. If you have some thoughts on this, leave some comments. I'd like to see what you all think, and let me know what you suggest people should do during this time. I think you should get a VPN. I think you should check out Monero. We obviously need to build the circular economy. All that's important. So just want to give my thoughts on that. Hope you all are doing well out there. My name is Mateo. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out my XMR Super Chat tip page below. And I'll see you all soon.